cases in which one is allowed or even encouraged to lie. And the thing we mentioned, last thing we mentioned last year, you're allowed to lie about somebody who's kala. If she's ugly, you're allowed to say that she's pretty. You're encouraged to say that she's pretty. If somebody bought a lemon, you're allowed to and encouraged to say that they are that what they bought is a fine, good thing. And some people say that you should try and say it in a way which is ambiguous, but obviously, if this is necessary in order to make a person feel good, to say it in a way which is unambiguous, then you say it in a way which is unambiguous. Now, you're allowed to change what you say in order to make people feel, in general, calm or happy, or in order to console people who are sad and brokenhearted. It's interesting where we learn this out from. Because Rabbi Akiva married the daughter of Ben Kalba Savua. And they were very poor because Ben Kalba Savua was a very rich man, did not give them any, cut them off, and did not give them any funds, any money. And they were lying in a barn, and they were living in a barn, and they had one bundle of hay, and a person came to the barn and said, "Please give me a little bit of your hay because my wife is giving birth and I don't have anything on which she can lie." So Rabbi Akiva said to his wife, "See, there's a person who doesn't even have hay." Straw actually is perhaps the right word. But in any event, so there it says that Elio, Hanavi, was the person who came and said this to Rabbi Akiva and his wife. And Rabbi, he was not telling the truth, because he didn't have a wife, and the wife wasn't giving birth, and he wasn't living without any straw. Yet, nevertheless, he changed this in order to make Rabbi Akiva and his wife happy, or at least consoled, that they weren't the people at the very bottom of the barrel in terms of their financial situation. In the old days, I don't think they do this anymore. In the old days, if somebody was dying, they generally did not tell them they were dying. They generally said to them that they're going to get better. And this is in order to make sure that they didn't give up hope, or they didn't actually die quicker because of their knowledge they're going to die. Nowadays, it doesn't work like that. Nowadays, I think the trend in medicine is to let people know if they're actually dying, and so they should prepare for that. But in the old days, they did not let people know that, and when they didn't, that was allowed and encouraged if it was felt, obviously, that not telling them would lead them to perhaps try and survive a little longer and not give in so quickly. It's also part of this. When you have to tell a person that something bad happened to them, either they've been put in a cherem, or somebody died in their family, you're allowed to also change what you say. And we find examples of this throughout Shas. Rabbi Akiva used to come. They had to come to Rabbi Eliezer and Horkanos and tell him he was in the cherem. He didn't actually say anything to him. He sat at a distance, and just Rabbi Eliezer and Horkanos figured it out on his own. There also is a case where Rabbi Chia, who was the uncle of Rav, had both sides. Rav's parents. One was to have brother of Rabbi Chia, and the other was to have sister Rabbi Chia from different marriages. So they weren't related to each other, but they were both related to Rabbi Chia. So when he asked Rav if his father's alive, he said his mother's alive. When he asked Rav if his mother's alive, he said his father's alive. Rabbi Chia understood from this that they were both dead. So in order to not break the news more gently, one is allowed to say things which are different. Generally speaking, if somebody is, there's regarding preventing truth from coming to somebody, if you have a person who, this actually happened with Rabbi Yoshe, Ben Chaim Kanievsky's wife. If you have a person whose relative passed away, and they would have to sit Shiva, and you don't want them to have to sit shiva for whatever reason, so you don't have to tell them that the person died, even if it's a close relative. This is a very big judgment call. But in that case, they never told Rabbi Yoshi that his daughter died, and he never sat shiva or anything of the sort. What's generally done, I should say what's occasionally done, is that if you find out that some relative died more than 30 days after the event, then you don't sit shiva, you just sit down on the ground briefly for a moment and take off your shoes, and that's called a shmua ruchoka. Here you hear at a distance, and sometimes people do that if they don't want somebody elderly or sick to have to sit a full shiva and go through shloshim. They wait to tell them until after 30 days are over. This is a very big judgment call, because some people would say that this is a disfavor. It's not a good thing to do. But every case in Judaism, it depends on the psychology of the individual. The question is who are you dealing with, and what's the best possible outcome for that person, not what's the absolutely true. It's absolutely false. Everything is determined. What's truth in terms of our relationship with other people is what's going to be best for them in terms of their psychology. Whether it's the best for them in order to preserve their happiness or their calm, or not to make them depressed or angry, that's what works, and that's considered to be the truth for that situation. Now, people would say, and the Bali Musar say very often, that that's called Emes. It's not Emes in the sense that what you're saying is Emes. It's Emes in the sense that the way you're conducting yourself and what you are, the way you're relating that other person is the truest way in which to relate to them under the circumstances. That's not to say that this is the Emes in terms of the material which is stated. It's Emes in terms of the relationship. We know this, I believe I said this one already over, but I want to say it over again in this context, from Gemara about Rav Tavyumi and Sanhedrin, that he came to a certain town called Luz, where nobody died until they were ready, until they were advanced in years, because nobody there told an untruth. They ever said a sheker, or even something which is not accurate. And he married a woman and had 2 children there, and once a neighbor came to see his wife, and she was in the shower, and he didn't want to say she was in the shower, so he said something else. So I forget exactly what he said, but in any event, the bottom line is that his 2 children died, and they asked him to leave the city because he couldn't abide by their levels of truth. So if he was living any place else besides Luz, this would have been actually the best thing to do, and that would have been the Emes outside of Luz. It's not the Emes in Luz, because Luz is on a different standard. Luz is a place where the rules of truth and falsehood were on a different plateau than they are outside the city of Luz. And the idea is that every situation demands a different level of Emes. And Chazal say at the end of Masechet Soita that in times of Ikvas of the Mashiach, Emes tiene deres, and which literally means Emes will be lacking. But as Rashi says there, it means Emes will become like a flocks of sheep. An Eder is a flock of sheep. And there'll be small pockets of Emes. Here there'll be a flock of true people. Here there'll be a flock of true people, but surrounded by a vast wasteland of falsehood. And when you're dealing with that falsehood, sometimes you have to deal with that falsehood in a way which is appropriate to deal with it. But in any event, Emes Emes again means not just that there's absolute truth, which was the case of the city of Luz, and perhaps is what's meant by the Mishnah at the end of Soita, but rather, more likely, the Mishnah at the end of Soita means Emes is what's true in that situation in terms of how to relate to the other person. You're allowed to lie in order to save somebody else from embarrassment, such as to accept upon yourself the blame for somebody who did something wrong, or to put yourself into and to conclude yourself among people who are supposed to be sinners, in order to save the face of the people who actually did it. And there's Gemara has a couple of cases. Shmuel HaKoton. Shmuel HaKoton was sitting with Rabbi Gamliel, and they were trying, where they were figuring out whether to make extra months for the year. And so there are two versions. One of them in which he said Rabbi Gamliel said, who came up here was not supposed to come up here? There's one extra person here. And Shmuel cousin said it was me. And he went down. Another case, it said, somebody ate too much garlic here. Who ate too much garlic? And the Shmuel cousin says it was me. And he went down. And then obviously the other people went and followed him. So there, in these cases, to save somebody else from embarrassment, Shmuel HaKatan said it was me. That was not true. Outright lie. It's not as bad, not Yehuda and Tamar was not as outright lie. Tamar, when she was about to be killed, said to Yehuda, "Tell me to whom belong this signet ring and the staff." And Yehuda then admitted it, because there it was the opposite way. The way she saved Yehuda from being embarrassed was by not saying anything. And there Chazal say, "Mutav lipo b'kiv shana eish." Obviously, it's not 100% accurate. It's just a very dramatic statement. But better to fall into a fiery furnace than to embarrass somebody in public. That's the other way of looking at that. The flip side of that, where you, in order not to embarrass somebody else, you don't tell the full truth, so to speak, which is also permitted. If people are poor and you want to give them their money in a way in which won't cause them to be embarrassed, you're allowed to change and say something different in order to try and make them feel better, or to pretend that somebody else gave it, a third party gave it, or somehow make it seem that it's coming from somewhere anonymous, whatever the case may be, in order to make a person feel good. It's interesting that it's brought down here an interesting thing which says that if you want to make your Talmidim do tshuva or be makarev rechokim, you can say to them, I also sinned in this way, in order to diminish their embarrassment. Okay? And you should be careful not to go down to their level, because if that diminishes, I'm quoting what he says, if his honor is diminished in their eyes, they're not going to respect him anymore and he won't have as much influence. But in order to make them feel good about their sins, or not so bad about their sins, a person is allowed to say, I too have that flaw. It's a fascinating pattern. Okay, it's a good one also. A woman who's a widow, or some other woman who's having difficulty getting married, you're allowed to pretend like you want to marry her. And you're also allowed to say that she's your relative, in order that other people would want to marry her because of her yichus. In fact, in terms of shidduchim, obviously there are times when you can't reveal certain things because of lashon hara, and sometimes you have to reveal them because of lo samar damrecha. Not to stand idly by when your friend is about to suffer a great loss by marrying a woman or a man who has hidden shortcomings.
Sorry. Just going back to the first thing, is that a contradiction to the Rambam that says you shouldn't confess your sins?
No, he actually brings that down. It's a good point. He says that you should do it in a way which doesn't make it known to the public that you sinned. In other words, if you're telling a few of your Talmidim in private, you should not, obviously, you should not publicize your sins in general, certainly not where it's not true that you sinned. But you're allowed to do it in a small, limited circle, or to one Talmud or so. He brings an interesting thing here from Reb Shlomo Zalman. Reb Shlomo Zalman asks, can you lie about your age in Shidduchim? Which is done all the time. So the question is whether it's mutter or not mutter. He says, the question is whether when somebody's getting married, get married older, but I think also people who are too young also round up their age somewhat. So Shlomo Zalman says it's also to do. You can't change your age in Shidduchim. Rabbi Yoshiv said you're allowed to change a little bit. Like to say on somebody that she's 20, that she's really 19. And it said in the name of Anna Kotler that he permitted somebody who's 30 to say he's 28. Which is, that 30 is a big psychological barrier. So And he said, on the other hand, this sefer, the sefer of which he's quoting here, which has all these psukim, says that you also to say on a woman who's 40 years old that she's less than 40. Because there's a Gemara which says that if a woman gets married after 40, she can't have kids. Now, even though it's not true anymore, right? Women get married after 40 and do have kids, but nevertheless, because it's such a Gemara, it's also to say that a woman is under 40. But he himself, the author of this sefer, the Emes Knei, says it all depends on the time and place. And obviously, in our day and age, therefore, we could perhaps be more lenient because women are able to give birth at later ages than they used to. There's a famous psak from the Stipler, which he brings down here, which is, even though a person has shortcomings, you don't have to reveal all the shortcomings at once, at the beginning. For example, somebody has diabetes. They do not have to reveal in the shidduch that they have diabetes ahead of time. They should wait till the third or fourth zait in order to reveal that. Now, this actually happened. My sister is married to a very, very fine man who has diabetes, and he didn't tell her until the fourth date. And there's, I think, logic, not just logic, but I think it's and also in the outside world, where people get married by other methods, certainly not, somebody's not going to come up to a woman on her first date and say, you know what, I have diabetes. So therefore, one can actually put this off as long as one doesn't put it off till it's too late. I believe they say that just before people get engaged, they have to reveal all their shortcomings. Okay, so obviously the engagement should not be under false pretenses. Obviously, you don't have to leak them out at once. You should divulge them gradually over time. Okay, so the
Rabbi,
yes.
there is no issue of mekach doubt.
What?
Mekach doubt.
I can't hear.
Mekach doubt. Mekach doubt.
And mekachtos, no, engagement would not be mekachtos. Marriage would be. Engagement is not actual kinyan. It's just commitment. So, but yes, marriage under false circumstance pretenses would be a mekachtos and would cause all sorts of complications. It would be very dangerous. Yes. Okay.
If I go like Sheker and like you lie the age, and before the marriage she say that the real age, can you ask all the money back from the marriage that you say that she treat you and you don't want to marry her anymore?
I don't think the reason why you're allowed to lie by a year or two in age is because a year or two in age is not considered to be a mekachtos. It's not something where it's that severe where people are going to cancel shidduch when they find out that the person is a little bit older. As long if it was a very vast difference, yes, and I would say like 5 years or more, then probably there would be grounds for mekachtos. But within, if it's less than 5 years, I don't think that would be grounds for mekachtos, because it's known that people, especially women, do not like telling you their precise age. Right?
Okay.
My wife happens to still be 29 years old. That's what she tells me all the time. Okay, so that's what people say. So there are three. The Gemara says in Bamitzia that there are three things which a Talmid Chacham is allowed to change, which he can deviate from the precise truth, and even though normally they don't, which are Masechta, Puria, and Ushpiza. Okay, we're going to explain what those are in a minute. And it brings down, what's interesting is he brings down from the poskim, from the language of the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, that they say Adam is allowed to change. So it's not just Talmid Chacham. Anybody can deviate from the truth in these three areas. Okay, so what are they? Masechta means if a person asks you, if you know a certain Masechta, you're allowed to say, I don't know, or I didn't learn it, even though you did learn, even though you do know it, and that is anova. That's considered to be humility. It says, an interesting exception to this is that a rebbe who's testing his students should not change, because in that case, obviously, it would diminish the respect of the Talmud for the rebbe. Makes sense? If you're involved in learning one Masechta, you can say, "Oh, I'm learning another Masechta," in order that they shouldn't ask you questions in your learning, in order that you shouldn't be embarrassed to answer things of which you don't know. and you certainly can change in order to save others from embarrassment. And which is an interesting thing, because from the Gemara itself, it sounds like a Talmid Chacham is allowed to change and lie because of anava, because of humility and modesty. But here it's saying another reason: you're allowed to save yourself. And again, it's not just Talmid Chacham. You're allowed to save yourself from embarrassment and say something which is not true, in order that people should not ask you questions which you might not know the answer.
Why just Talmid Chacham?
What?
Like, if I'm gonna be embarrassed of something that if I don't lie, I'm gonna be embarrassed, can I lie?
Yes. If it's not going to, as long as it's not going to cause a loss or trick the other person in some way which is negative for that person. You can't lie or distort where it's going to cause the other person something bad or something negative. But if it's just to save yourself embarrassment and has no other ramification, that'll be okay. Okay? Now here, a couple of very interesting things he brings down here on tangents. He says, again, I know what sefer is quoting. He just gives the Rashi Tevis here, Tov Aleph Lamed. He brings the name of Rabbi Yoshev, that a Bacher went out for a date, and he was asked where he was later on by his Rebbe or by his friends. He is allowed to say, I went to the store, or something like that, in order he doesn't have to divulge that he went on a date, if that's embarrassing to him. He adds here in parentheses, L'choira, it would seem that there's also an added aspect of tznius in this. In other words, going on a date leads to all sorts of perhaps lewd conversation, so therefore you're allowed to consider went on a date. Now, if it's another thing here is a woman. Another very interesting thing: a woman who had a miscarriage, and then she gave birth to a male child, and the child is not now a bechor because she had a miscarriage before. So if somebody asks her when is the Pidyon Ben, she's allowed to lie and say that she is the daughter of a Kohen or the daughter of a Levi, in which case the Pidyon Ben is not relevant. So again, to save herself from embarrassment, she's allowed to lie. And he says, I heard that this is what Baalei Tshuva rely on to lie or to change when they're asked of what they did in their youth. In other words, in their dark past. What?
Is this Rabbi Yoshev or the Emes Knei?
No, this is the Emes Knei. And he does bring that, he wants to say that it does come from a source, it's from Ashrei, Nesui Pesha, Kesui Chata. And Igros Moshe says, it's also to reveal your sins. And he says, revealing your sins is Chukos HaGoyim. Because who reveals their sins? Who?
Christians.
Catholics, right. So it's to reveal sins, unless you tell me to the Chacham, in order to be makabel tikunei tshuva. Okay? Obviously, it's in a chait which is not public. But if it was a chait which is public, then obviously you have to admit it. But again, the other circumstances, either because to avoid embarrassment or to avoid losing a shidduch or such like, losing a position because you're a Baal Tshuva, you don't have to reveal your past. You can can say that you're FFB, if that is advantageous to you. Okay?
It seems kind of counterproductive for shidduchim, right? I mean,
again, if it necessary to get yourself in the front door, right? Obviously, by the third or fourth date, you should reveal the truth. But just like the guy with diabetes doesn't have to say that first, you also don't have to say it first if it's going to be detrimental to a shidduch or job or whatever the case may be. Okay?
Rabbi,
yes.
now, like, let's say the police stop and he asks you if, I don't know, something that's going to cause a loss, but the police don't even gain any money, like...
I'm sorry, who's asking?
David.
No, I know who's asking. I can't see your mouth, so I can't understand you so well. Yeah.
Let's say, like, for example, if the
as long as you're not under oath, if you're doing it to save yourself from embarrassment, I would say that it's permitted. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's midas chasidus. I think midas chasidus would be to take your punishment. But if it's not under oath, and obviously there is there's a lot of embarrassment and also monetary loss in saying precisely how fast you were going. So then you can lie, but again, the lie should be one which is not outright. Find some subtle way to say it. If I think that I'm pretty sure that you don't have to tell the absolute truth to a policeman. I think that policeman that in court you have to tell the truth, but not necessarily to policemen. If I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong about what I'm saying in La Locha as well. But anybody have any idea?
Wait, you don't have to tell the truth?
To a policeman who stop you on the road. For example, if he asks you if you were talking on the phone, I don't think you have to say we're talking on the phone. I think you're allowed. I don't think that you have to tell the absolute truth to a policeman. If he say he saw you were talking on the phone, and he's asking you, and you say no, then you'll be in trouble. I'm not saying it's the best idea to follow, but if you can save yourself by embarrassment by stretching the truth or even lying, so you certainly could save yourself from a monetary loss where you're not causing the other person monetary loss. And since you could say, well, avoiding a ticket is a form of causing the government the monetary loss, but I don't think that's the case, because you don't actually owe them the money yet, and there are many times in which a person gets off a ticket. I should add something, which is, if you've ever been to traffic court, you will know that the entire traffic court system is based on Sheker. When you come to traffic court, if you have a ticket, they will plea bargain with you, and they will tell you to lie. For example, in the town of Ramapo, if you get a speeding ticket, or the last ticket I got was going through a red light, and then you come to court, they will tell you that they'll plea bargain with you, and they will give you a ticket for parking on the pavement, which has an unbelievably high fine for parking on the pavement. It's like $175 after all the surcharges. So, but the whole notion of the traffic court is this: we're not looking actually to find the Emes, but to find a way to milk money from you. So, in this case, it is a true manifestation of Olam HaSheker. Now, if a person is a tremendous chassid, and halavai, we all become great chassidim, then we wouldn't lie and we say the absolute truth. But is it mutter to not say the absolute truth in these cases? Yes, it's mutter not to say the absolute truth. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, you're allowed to if you're nervous and you're not sure you're going to be able to answer a question properly, or that somebody's going to mess you up because they're going to ask a question which you're not prepared to answer, also you're allowed to say, well, I didn't learn this, and therefore I can't talk to you about it. So here it brings down, to the footnotes here, we're going to all sorts of tangents. It's possible to say that in any tircha, any difficulty, which you're not required to do for somebody else, you can distort your words in order to not do that. So it's a very far-fetched source. But it means like one Erevin where Rabbi Yeshua did not want to eat a dish because it was too salty, and he said to the woman who served it to him, the innkeeper, that I already ate. So that it seems to be more about not embarrassing, not about a tircha. But he said, well, let's give an example. Let's say somebody's running to go to a bus, and his friend asks him, do you have a pen I can borrow? And if he says that he doesn't have time, or then the guy is going to be insulted, or is going to pressure him, or let's say a person is in the middle of a conversation and somebody asked him what time it is, or if they called your house or knocked on your door and asked him if you're there. In all these cases, you don't have to answer them, and maybe even allowed to not tell the truth. Okay, so it's a fascinating thing because he learns out here, in order to save oneself tircha, in order not to miss the bus, in order not to be interrupted. So you don't have to tell the truth. Now I don't know I don't see how he learns it out from this, but he brings down now the name Rav Yosha Reb Shlomo Zalman. If somebody comes to your house and you don't want to see him, it's a meshulach, right? So amongst the custom is not to open the doors for meshulachim. But let's say somebody opened the door, right? Your kid opened the door, silly kid. So then, so the people in the house are allowed to say that he's not here. Even though it's better to say, it's a good cute cop. It's better to say, well, he's going to be here later, because that way it's not an outright lie, right? He's saying he's not saying he's not here now. He's saying he's going to be here later. But the reason is because a person is not required to meet somebody, and it is not required to tell people what he's doing at the moment. And if he'll tell the truth, then he's going to embarrass the guy, because it's going to feel, the guy's going to feel that they don't want to see him. And maybe there's therefore mipnei shalom here, so that the meshulach or whatever it is doesn't feel downtrodden. But he says there that you shouldn't do this in front of a child, because then the child will get used to telling lies. Okay, but Emes Knei says, well, it's all relative. But in any event, this can happen in shul. Let's say somebody in shul comes to you and says, he wants money from you. So you can say, I don't have any money, right? Which is less embarrassing than saying, I don't want to give you money. And the better thing to do, which I do, is to go like this, which they interpret to mean that you don't have any money when you shrug your shoulders. But in fact can mean that you just want to give him, but it's not clear either way, so that's a better response. By the way, why don't we have to give to every meshulach? There's the Isser Lo Tamed says Yodcha, you're not allowed to keep your fist closed when somebody comes asking for tzedakah. So the reason why we don't give money to everybody nowadays is because mipnei haramoim, because many of the people who come as meshulachim are really deceitful and not actually poor, or not actually collecting for the cause that they're collecting. And you should know that in Hilchos Meshulachim, many meshulachim for themselves. So what happens very often is that you're really supporting the meshulach as much, if not more. I don't know about dishonest meshulachim, how much they take, but even honest meshulachim take up to 49% of the take, and therefore there are probably better ways to support an institution than to give them meshulachim, unless the meshulach himself is somebody who's worthy of your support. Okay?
Wasn't it true?
What?
Was it not true also in earlier times that people would lie?
Yes, and that the Chazal say, let us be grateful for the cheaters, because otherwise we'd be in trouble that we don't give everybody tzedakah. So there's precedent that right from the time of Chazal. Yes. All right, let's. This is a very interesting halacha, which is throughout shots, and it's difficult perhaps to understand to a certain extent. If you know halacha is true, without any doubt, you're allowed to say it in the name of a great person, or the name of the rabbim, the majority of the poskim, in order that they should accept what you're saying.
What?
This is actually an explicit Gemara. Gemara says, if you want to, Gemara Psalm of Kuf Yud Beis Omenal says, if you want your words to be accepted, Yitla B'ilan Gadol, say in the name of a great person. So I had a Rebbe who said that he used to tell us things of his own in the name of Reb Shimon Shkop or Reb Chaim Brisker, because he knew if he said it on his own, so we wanted to listen to it too much. But then saying name Reb Shimon, Reb Chaim, we'll pay much more attention. Now that's not halacha, but this is in terms of halacha. Yes, it's a very strange Gemara, but the Gemara exists, and the Gemara says that you, if you know that you're 100%, you're right. You're allowed to say the name of a great person, even if it's not, in order that people should accept what you're saying.
I mean, I guess you can't do this when the Sanhedrin is around, right? You can't say, like, oh, the rest of the Sanhedrin agrees with me. Or
Why not?
you can.
If you're convinced you're right, if you come to Shemayim after 120 years and you aren't right, you're in big trouble. But if you're convinced that you're right,
You're Zuck and Mamre.
what?
You're Zuck and Mamre.
I'm not sure which scenario. You mean a Zakin Mamre comes back to his town and says I'm driving son Shabbat like me? Yeah, that would be us. That would be forbidden. Yeah. If the Nigel Paskin one way and you said the other way, yes, that you can't do. Okay.
Well, what about the Gemara about saying, like, you know, it's
By the way, let's give an example. Let's say I held an Erev as puzzle, right? So I could say, that the Moshe fights, he says this kind of Erev is puzzle, even though he doesn't say that. Yeah.
there's an idea of, like, saying something in the name of someone, giving him merit
Yeah.
that way, right?
But that's
So,
here. It's more expedient to say the name of somebody else. You know, there can be conflicting values. One value is to say the name of the person who said it. The other value is to make sure that people listen to you. Okay, it's a Gemara. What can I tell you? Obviously, a person has to do totally l'shem shamayim. Sometimes it's not the case, but you have to do totally l'shem shamayim. So the various ramifications being down about this issue and when it applies, but that's a basic parameter. If you're sure of something, then you can even say it in somebody else's name. A Rebbe is allowed to change what he says or does about a certain halacha in order that the Talmidim should ask him questions. You find the Gemara several times that the Amoraim say something which is not correct in order to test out the students or get them to ask questions. And so some say you can even trick somebody and ask him a question, even though he doesn't want to be, and say that you need to know halacha l'maisa, even if you don't, because you want to get that person to answer your question. So if you need to know, let's say you'll say that, you want to know if an Erev is kosher or not, and you don't plan on actually carrying that Erev anyway. So you can pretend that it's l'maisa, and then ask as if it's l'maisa and get that chacham's opinion. But he says here a very interesting thing. He says you're not allowed to write a shaila to a great person and write on the envelope the name of another person who's a great person, who's as if Chashav Rav is asking the question. If otherwise, the rabbi would not pretend you're asking somebody else's name if that person actually didn't ask the question, because then you're used to putting that other person on the line, right? Which you're not supposed to do. So you're creating an impression which that third person is going to make that he's asking this question, and the question might not be such a bright question. So therefore, you can't put him in a position where you're pretending that he asked the question, which is not a good question. Sorry?
Could that be the same problem with the, if you say something like an opinion from somebody that's not their actual opinion? Because then somebody can ask, hey, didn't you say this and that? And they say,
Yeah,
no, I don't.
so that's why it says they have to be absolutely sure that that's the truth. Again, if it's something like telling over alumnus, so it doesn't make that much difference, so then I don't think, especially say the name of somebody dead, that makes it really good, because there won't be any repercussions, or less repercussions. Okay, That's the first thing you'll have to change in. We're going to talk about the next things you'll have to change in next week. Mirz Hashem, and everybody should have a good week. Take care.
What's the name of this sefer?
It's called Emes Knei. See? It's really that's Emes Knei is the second sefer. It's together with Mishpatei HaSholom, which is Halachos Ben Adam L'Chavero.
Shalom.
Yeah. Okay?
Good. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everybody.